How's everyone doing? Ruth, good morning. Um, for those of you tuning in for the first time, welcome. Definitely comment, let me know where you're tuning in from so I can give you a shout out. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, welcome as well. I'm all smiles today because God, let me tell y'all, you know, in the past, you take certain things for granted, like putting together really strong cases and getting approvals, and stuff like that, and now, you have an administration that just wants to make things really, really difficult for so many people, even though they clearly meet the burden, of the proof. So, um, I want to start by sharing good news today. But before I go into the good news related to my client, I wanted to just introduce myself for those of you who are new. My name is Aisha Chidole, and I'm an immigration lawyer here in Atlanta, Georgia, but I represent clients all over the United States. So your location is not a problem. We handle cases in family-based cases, marriage-based cases, fiance consular processing, humanitarian-based cases like VAWA, trafficking cases, and U visas, which is victims of serious crime. We also handle removal cases. You guys met our lead removal attorney, who I work in tandem with. I've told you guys several times, I'm only one person. So we have a very collaborative team here, and we work together and divide and conquer to get all our clients desired. And so sometimes, even if you don't consult with me, or even if another attorney starts the process of your case, like there's, my hands are still in it in some capacity, depending on what case type it is. But I try to go through and, be an advocate for every case we submit, and how I would revise it and how I would review it, or what I would change, or, what I anticipate challenging, because for me, something that, I consider a gift of mine is, discernment and just being able to think strategically. When I look at a client's application, I've had people who have prepped for an interview say to me, man, like, I wish I came to you the first time, or I would never have thought about this, or why this would be a problem. But that's just something that I feel that, maybe God has blessed me with. I'm just very intuitive like that. But today I wanted to share some good news. If you guys remember, about 3 weeks ago, I think it was 3 weeks ago, I told you guys about, a client of mine who they basically try to file by themselves, and their case got denied for something really silly, that they forgot to turn in, right? It's so painful, right? And so they came to us, and when I looked at it, I just shook my head. I just couldn't believe it. So we filed a proper marriage-based case, and when we filed this proper marriage-based case, before you knew it, we got an NTA for deportation court. And I'm like, what? Like, we submitted our case. This is not right. This is not fair. This is this is just like so wasteful, like, having the clients. But, again, things happen for a reason. The first interview, we first said, okay, why you guys even scheduled them for an interview? Because you've already sent them to, deportation removal court. And you don't have jurisdiction. So they said they're not going to cancel it. They're not going to cancel the interview. So we're like, okay, when's the interview? So the first interview, we say, okay, we'll go to the interview. Interview gets canceled because of the weather. The second interview, we had another rainstorm or whatever, hurricane watch that day. So we're all watching it, and the interview didn't get canceled. It was raining, but it didn't get canceled. We go in there, me and the officer, a very kind officer, she, she really wanted to understand, how this happened and what happened. And, we're like, listen, that's what happens when, sometimes you go and you don't have an attorney, or, you think you know what you're doing, or whatever it is. But, here we are. Anyway, long and short, even though he had that, master hearing, funny enough, they scheduled it for 2028. So meaning 2028 is like 2 years from now. I had said to her, well, if you can just approve the I-130, we can take the I-130 to court, and maybe just administratively close the 485. We'll take it to terminate the case, and then we can come back and reopen it. So what she did was even better. She granted my client approval of the green card, even though he had the removal case. So they mailed the removal his green card. And then when he got his green card 2 weeks ago, we submitted a motion. So I had to blur out his name. We submitted, you guys may not be able to see it. So we submitted a motion to the court here in Atlanta, asking them to terminate this case because this client is eligible for citizenship. This client is a green card holder, got approved, and DHS, which is Department of Homeland Security, they have not met their burden, so they should terminate it. And as of last night, this client his case was what basically says that, after considering the facts and circumstances, I'm skipping one. After considering the facts and circumstances, the immigration court orders that the motion to terminate is granted without prejudice because the Department of Homeland Security did not meet its burden. I don't know if you guys can see it. I'm sure no one did not meet its burden of proving by clear and convincing evidence that the respondent is removable as charged. So based on that, the respondent has met their own burden by clear and convincing evidence. So they are now 10-year green card holders. So, everything happens for a reason. Of course, it was a very stressful process for them and scary process for them. But honestly, like any good news I get, no matter how small it is, I celebrate it because it's like you're dealing with a mountain of obstacles in the current administration, and like you just have to fight. Like we're in constant fight mode, which can be really exhausting. I got to tell you, like where you have to really fight for your clients because they're just like when I see certain RFEs or noids or denials, like I am so angry, at some point I'm going to need anger management therapy. When I see it and like, I just want to rip, well, at least with my words, like in my briefs or like, people like cherry picking certain evidence or like so basically the long and short of what I'm saying is like, this is not a time for like, just sloppy work. Like even good evidence, you have to fight to prove that your evidence is real and that it's true because they are they say do it the legal way. People are doing it the legal way, but they are creating an insurmountable hurdle to even prove genuine evidence. So you really, really need to make sure that when you are submitting that you have thought about every no, every query, every single but, ifs and about they're going to mention. Last night, I was meant to be doing an interview prep for about an hour and a half, and I spent 3 hours with this couple yesterday as we went over their immigration application because they filed a marriage-based case twice and they were denied both times. These people have been married for 7 years. And some of what I heard from them was nobody has ever prepped us for an interview like this before. But I was like, I was like, bring all the noids you received, all the denials you received. We are going to go through every single line. And I need you to tell me what the answer is. Because, I've told you guys before, something that I've noticed, two things can be true. But the thing is, if you don't explain how those two things can be true, let me tell you, when you go into that place, you don't have a lot of time. Like in consults, like sometimes I'll be asking potential client stuff, and they're not really giving me all the information. And then I tell them, I said, let me tell you something. You're not gonna get this from USCIS. If they ask you one time and you don't give them the answer they want, they're moving on to the next question, right? So you have to, you really have to explain why two things are true at the same time. One popular example, there are many, I have many examples, but the one that will always stick out in my head is when one of the bases where they denied a couple was because they said that the couple, one of them said that they met at a sports bar, and the other one said that they met at a restaurant. And the fact that they didn't have one person spoke French and the other person speaks English, the American. And I was like, first, so, obviously I spoke with a couple. This was annoyed. They hired me for the annoyed, like a notice of intent to deny. So I was like, okay, where did you guys meet? The first thing I wanted to know, I was like, what is the name of the place? First thing I did is I just went on Google, found the restaurant. It is a sports bar and it is a restaurant. Those two things are exactly true, but it's how people understand and can interpret it. A sports bar is where people eat and go to eat, drink, and watch games, right? A restaurant is the same thing where people go to eat. But the thing is, if you are from a different place culturally, you might not call it a sports bar. For many people who are not from the United States, that might not be a phrase they use. They may use a restaurant, right? And then for people here who separate, sports bar versus, it's just like some people go to tapas or whatever it is. So, or whatever it is, they have specific names, but that doesn't make it inaccurate. And because someone does not speak the same language as someone does not make their marriage invalid, right? That's literally why consular process exists, because sometimes people fall in love with foreigners, right? That's literally the foundation of immigration, that you fall in love with a foreigner, not that you fall in love with an English speaker. So, we went really hardcore, on that note, and, that client got approved. But so what I'm saying is, when you know that you have two interpretations or you're culturally different, it's really important to prepare for your interview, no matter how long you've been married, right? It's like, I've been married 17 years this year. And if you ask my husband, Chinedu, or myself to narrate how we met or how we started dating, there's going to be a variation, right, of our stories. And, clearly we have a good faith marriage. We've been married 17 years. We have two children who are 15 and 13. But the point is, in an interview setting, you have to prepare so that you can address those discrepancies and the discrepancies and your understanding of what it is that has happened or the question that you're asking. So you should never go to an interview unprepared. Just the same way that if you have a job interview, you're going to research the company, you're going to research the types of questions you're going to ask, so you understand it. If you have an exam, you are going to, study for the exam, and anticipate the kinds of questions. It is the same way. You always, when you're looking at your application, you always want to think this way. If there is anything in my application that someone else cannot answer, then it's not clear enough. Then I need to caption it or I need to explain it in the application. So it's easier to digest when we get to USCIS office. Like when I'm reviewing applications, I'm looking at it that way. If I have a question as to this, then we've not addressed it enough, or we've not given enough explanation to it. And maybe some people just prefer like, oh, I'll just put the stuff together, or don't need any captions, don't need any whatever it is. But that's just not how I am. I'm someone who truly believes, preparation, opportunity, preparation meets opportunity, opportunity meets preparation. Basically, when you are presented with an opportunity to get your green card, you want to do it right. You want to get it right, because it is, as you guys see, it is very painful. It is very painful to go through the process, and then end up being deported. So anyway, I'm getting down my pedestal and high of today, but I'm just so happy, for this client who just really, the sweetest couple, didn't even deserve for this to happen to them, just really entrusted and believed that we're going to do the good work for them. And that's another thing, guys. I'm not saying that there are not bad lawyers or whatever it is, or people who don't give their full effort. But you guys have to understand that, at the end of the day, it takes a lot to be an immigration lawyer in 2026. That's number one. I can't tell you how many of my colleagues want out and want to quit because they don't want to deal with clients anymore, and just the fact that we absorb every problem you have. So when I say we absorb, when you make a choice of however you choose to come to America, or however you choose to overstay, or whatever immigration violations, we have to absorb that and be your defender, And so imagine that we're defending you, and we're defending hundreds of people. So sometimes you have to kind of put yourself in the shoe of your attorney to understand the stress level. We're being hit from DHS, we're being hit from USCIS, we're being hit from the administration, we're being hit from our clients, but we truly are doing our best. Like, I care for every client that comes here. I may not talk to you every day because I am truly busy. Attorney Stacy may not talk to you every day because she's literally in hearings all day. It's like today she's like sniffling. I'm like, please just take the day off because she has 2 hearings tomorrow so she doesn't mess up. Like, I need to be at USCIS tomorrow. Like, we are truly busy. And so in order for us to work, some of our work has to be delegated to our team, and we work together and we finalize it. So you guys, I know it is a tough time, but you have to be patient. You have to make sure that you are, informed about your the firm that you choose to go to and what it is that you're able to do. If people say, oh, I'm doing this or I'm doing that, you should get the proof. You should be able to see the proof, just because there's so many scam artists, which I think is also part of why there's so much, pressure being put on immigrants who are having to deal with this aftermath of all the scam that is happening, that you really want to make sure that you are going to the right place. Okay, so someone is saying, can he fight though? I'm not sure who you're referring to, but I received update. Hi, my lovely Aisha. I received the updated case is ready to be scheduled. How long does it take? Okay, this is something that confuses a lot of people. When you see that, it doesn't mean that your case is going to be scheduled for an interview that very day. That very month or whatever it is. Sometimes it could still take a year after that. Basically, what they're saying is that they have everything they need, and it's just going to be placed in the scheduling queue. It doesn't mean they're going to schedule you for an interview within a couple of weeks or even a couple of months. It could take like 10 months, 11 months, well, depending on your case type. So it really means nothing. It just means that at this time, they're not going to be requesting additional evidence from you. They're ready to interview you and straight up, ask you the questions. And, so that's basically what it means. Sometimes it could be that they will be issuing you an interview notice right away, like in a couple of weeks. But what I'm saying is to say that even if they don't issue you one, it doesn't mean that anything is wrong. All right. Someone says a praying and caring lawyer is the best. Thank you. Yes, a praying and caring one, I need a consultation from my brother. You can definitely call us. Our number is 678-325-1037. You can also send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. And then our other numbers, 407-995-6567. Deja says, I've recommended her law firm to so many people who are struggling to get approved. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Sonison says, I'm so much in love with her professionalism. I've recommended her firm to all my friends. Thank you so much. You guys are off the chain today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Has the Dignity Act been passed? No, it has not been passed yet. It's been actually a little bit quiet on the immigration front. As far as updates, like there have been nothing. It's just been really quiet the last couple of weeks. So there are no new updates. But as I've said, with any pauses or bans, immediately I hear or see something different, I will let you know. What I told you guys yesterday, we are seeing a lot of people from those 39 countries being scheduled right now for interviews, like interviews that maybe were canceled. So now they're rescheduling them. So let's see what happens. And as I start getting some real decisions from those, then I can update you guys. Can you bring with you your personal statement at the USCIS interview if you filed an I-751 waiver based on abuse, divorce, extreme cruelty, and hardship? Yes, you can. I mean, when you say can you bring it, what do you mean? If you already submitted it to them, you don't need to give it to them again. If you didn't submit it to them, then you can bring it. But one of the things that you need to understand is that if you are going for an I-751 interview, you have to be prepared to give your testimony by mouth. They will take your statement by mouth and they will type it. And oftentimes they will ask you to read it and sign it to say that this is what you testified to. So if you filed for VAWA and you end up being one of those that they've selected to do an I-360 interview, it is very important that you're able to give your testimony yourself. It is very important that you're consistent with whatever it is that you wrote in your personal statement. Review it so you can remember the story, because sometimes by the time you're scheduled for an interview, years may have passed and you may have forgotten certain things. Review it to make sure that you're able to give the testimony, because oftentimes or sometimes they may not look at it. They may just say, well, you tell me while you're here. So you can bring it, but you should be able to articulate it, Okay. Let's see what else we got. I'm from the 39 affected countries, and I'm due to file the N-400 this month. Does the freeze still affected? Are there any changes so far? I think I just answered this question right now about what we're seeing. You can file for the N-400. The instructions literally say, the instructions literally say you can, that they will be processing your cases up until decision. So they will still schedule for biometrics. Now they're going back to interviewing more people, whatever it is. But we're waiting on someone's decision. Once I have one person's decision from the 39 countries, I'll let you know, because, the way they framed it in the policy update that they gave on March 31st was that they've now given them the instructions of what it is based on each country, like what it is that they want them to look for. So, with some countries, this is what you should be looking for. With other countries, this is what you should be looking for. Do you think that the lawsuit against the pause by USCIS would help everyone if they win, or just for the plaintiffs? It will really depend, it just really depends. Only the federal judge can make that determination. So we have to wait to see what happened. My green card expired. They issued a letter for extension. Can I travel out of the USA? I can't answer your own question personally, because I don't know when your extension letter expires, because you're counting from the date of the actual green card expiration, to the letter of extension, because a lot of people think that you count from the date you get the letter of extension. No, you count from the date of expiration, so that will all depend. It will also depend on if you have any kind of criminal records or criminal history. Someone asked here on YouTube, how is USCIS using AI? I'm not sure. I don't think I understand how you structured the sentence, but I think the question that you're asking is USCIS using AI in immigration cases? And the answer is actually yes. They are, to do certain reviews and to check on certain inconsistencies in previous filings and previous histories. So, refiling doesn't fix something if you don't address it. So, like, if you married someone before and, things, didn't work out, or just say you have like a marriage sham and then you married a second person, you should fully expect that they are going to touch on those things. So you want to be able to defend that and the current marriage. So that's how they're leveraging AI, to look for certain things or certain red flags or certain inconsistencies in the applications. That's why your applications must be consistent. You can't have one application you filed. You said that you lived on James Street, between March 2020 to June 2020. And then in your other application, you're like, I lived on James Street, but it was from like June to like December 2021. Like you need to make sure that your application is consistent. Okay. I only have time for one more question. Sorry, guys. My friend got her 2-year green card and marriage was abusive. So she filed an I-751 and got a 48-month extension. What's the next step? Nothing. She just has to wait for them to make a decision on her 755. On her 751, or wait for them to schedule her for an interview. She will most likely be called for an interview. Again, these interviews, especially interviews related to abuse, are very, very intense. They take hours. It's very grueling. And so you want to make sure that you're prepared for that and to relive, whatever it is that happened, or the trauma that happened. All right, guys. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I'll be back on live tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So hopefully I'll have more time for questions, unless I have a new announcement or something. And otherwise, schedule a consultation if you want to ask questions about your own specific case. The consultation could be with me or any of my other attorneys who are very capable. This termination was done by Attorney Stacy. And that's why I keep telling you guys, like, we don't hire anybody here that's not capable, because for me, they're an extension of me, or a reflection of me. And so, our goal is to take everybody to the finish line, not just to take you as a placeholder. We need to get you to the finish line. Like, you need to be eligible to get to the finish line, essentially. Okay, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.